Hey Rob, how's it
Hey,
going?
doing?
Oh yeah, no, I really appreciate you for chatting with us today. I know you're very busy. And I wanted to share your story because you're a very interesting uh pathway, basically. So right now I know you are a performance coach for corporate wellness. So I guess first of all, like what does that mean?
Yes. Oh, first of all, thank you for having me here. So I work for a company called Exos, and we have different levels of performance coaches. So for those who don't know who Exos is, the NFL Combine is our major event, and what we do, we are the strength and conditioning coaches for the NFL Combine. But if you look at the umbrella of it, it goes into employer sites, so banks, corporate wellness, and that's where I mainly work at. So within the corporate wellness sector, I am a performance coach, and I basically teach individuals how to become healthier. These are individuals we could be working at a bank. They could be, it's a call center. So they have like a 9 to 5 job, and they come in and we have regular gym hours. So it's like a full functioning gym. There's no sauna, but we have other things like pickleball court, group fitness classes, and there's four of us that manage it, and we wear multiple hats. So the title performance coach is I don't know how to describe that, but it's mainly to help with health and wellness. And with that, everybody within that sector has to have a certification and a degree in exercise science. So all of our staff are certified and degreed. We're at the highest level, and anybody from researchers to your person who just got out of college. So I work mainly at a site where it's a bank, somebody who has a role, whether whoever it is in corporate, whether they're a bank teller to fraud to collections to management, they come in and they have basically a gym as their benefits, and we help them pursue their life as to be healthier.
Oh wow, that's amazing. So, thanks for going into detail about what performance coach means because I actually didn't know. I
Yeah,
s- I thought it was like theater, you know what I mean? Like, so it's good to
yeah,
know like fitness performance.
yes, it is very difficult to understand because after studying exercise science, it's not just the physical aspect, but it's more of the mental aspect. So there's a lot of mental clarity, as we say. We always talk about that in our field is how do you create mental clarity to have a higher capacity to basically have a clear mind. And that's from a performance wise, that's why the title performance coach comes out is how can we improve our mindset? So when we're talking about performance, what do you talk about? Like how do you perform better at your job, at your, if you want to run better, if you want to stretch better, how do you within your relationships, within your family. So it's geared towards the actual performance of that. So that's why it's so very difficult to talk about that itself.
Yeah, no, that is actually pretty cool. I think a lot of times, especially when you go on social media and a lot of fitness influencers, they focus more on the physical aspects, right? But here you are telling us it's actually more like a mental and a mindset shift. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yes. And it's like an umbrella of it. So you have the physical aspect of it, like which is your movement. Then you have your breath, and then it's a mindset. So it could be reflection, how you regulate, reflect on things. And that's daily. And that's not just daily, day to day, but that's also too daily, minute per minute, hour by hour, because these individuals at a bank could be taxed on meetings and they're busy, so they can't make it if we have like a group fitness session or a personal training session. They're just meetings on top of meetings, and everything, especially now, is a lot of things is through virtual platforms. So their employers, coworkers, they're not even in the state. So I currently live in Florida, and there could be somebody, I don't know, working at our Jacksonville site, and they could be literally connecting with people from, I don't know, North Carolina, New York, Texas. So that's kind of hard to have that mindset shift. So a lot of pivoting. You mentioned performance coach, and I can literally talk about all day about the performance coach itself. So that's why it's very difficult to say, hey, this is my title. So in a nutshell, just here, how about this? I mainly help individuals pursue a healthier lifestyle. That's what I mainly try to do.
Okay. Yeah, no, thanks for, this enlightening us about this. Um, Especially I'm thinking about everyone's unique, right? Like in a unique situation. So when you're talking about uh this healthy lifestyle, it probably looks different person to person, right? And kind of like what you said, like mental, it could be physical or whatever, right? Um, so those dimensions, but also just kind of like what the person's um I guess, background and priorities are. And so I was wondering, I mean, how do you navigate tailoring this like customized performance, I guess, recommendations for your clients?
Well, a lot of it is literally through connections. So it's really if you go back and I'm just digging back on how this actually originally started. So it's a lot of it is from when I joined the Navy. It's
Oh, wow.
it's the relationships, it's connections, it's communication. We all have different levels of communications. How do we communicate with each other? How do we correspond with each other? And then that's in your environment. So if you feel comfortable in an environment where you feel comfortable communicating with people, you're more likely to communicate. But if you go enter an environment where you don't feel comfortable, what does that look like? So you're more likely it goes back to that. I mean, there's so many theories of like these change. Like I can go into it. It's like you have contemplation, pre-contemplation, preparation. You probably heard of all that. You can go into those stages, but if you look at from individual, how do they respond to their environment? So what we do in our facilities, anybody who comes through the doors, it's always a welcoming, environment. It's neutral. We try to make everything fun. We try, nobody's talking about work. So that's where it really stems on, and then that's where, digging into like what I learned in the Navy is what it really inspired me to go this route, because what I saw when I entered the Navy and boot camp and how to communicate with people, we were talking about communicating with people who I've never met before. So for me to be welcomed and to see other people welcome each other, then that goes into a stem of whole learning, and that's what I'm so fascinated about is how do we learn? How do we grow? It's, we think learning is just grade school, or hey, I got my PhD. It's like it's not academia. It's like it's constant learning it all stems from curiosity. So if we're curious, if I enter the room and I'm kind of curious, I'm kind of weary, and it doesn't feel right, it probably doesn't feel right. So what are you more likely going to do? You're going to get out of that environment. So that's why I mentioned communication and how we respond within our environments. And that's the biggest thing I've learned after joining the Navy.
Wow. So I guess first off, thank you for your service,
Mhm.
right? And I think that's great that you are thinking about these things. I think a lot of times, and maybe I'm talking about from personal experience, or some people that I know, when you go to the gym, it can be intimidating, right? And you also have people who, I guess, have a gatekeeper feel where like you're not using that machine right, or you're not stretching right, and sure, there's like a knowledge that you can gain from someone giving you tips, but it's kind of like the approach, you mentioned that connection and communication. um if if you're approaching someone you've never met before in a potentially abrasive way, like, the uptake of that not potential knowledge is kind of blocked, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, so we have to not create it, not make it where it's not blocked. So, and I'm just adding on to what I'm giving you an example of what I learned in the Navy about communication. So when we were in boot camp, we couldn't talk during our chow. Our chow is when we eat. We only had 3 minutes to eat. It was crazy. So they teach a lot of discipline in it. So and this is where it all started, and I am kind of backtracking from where I was from a personal trainer. So now I'm a performance coach. Before I was a personal trainer, and then before that I was in the Navy. So, but communicating 3 minutes to eat, how do you if I'm at a table where there's like 10 people and there's ketchup, mustard, salt and pepper on the other side of the table, how do we communicate? And you can't talk. So this is where I learned a lot of things. I'm like, wait a minute, human beings are able to naturally communicate without verbally doing things. And I'll give you an example. So we discovered it. We're like, okay, wait a minute. We know we only have 3 minutes to eat. We cannot talk after chow and all this, we create a strategy. We're like, you know what? I'm gonna use my right hand. This is ketchup. My left hand, this is mustard. Left hand, this is salt. My right hand, this is pepper. So now the next time we go to chow, what are we doing? Hey, I know pepper. I need pepper. So now you know, I don't know, 10 feet away, I'm going to get in trouble, but I can't get in trouble if I do this. And that person knows I need ketchup. So they're going to throw down the ketchup down there. So this is why I mentioned what I learned from the US Navy is the camaraderie of natural learning with people. And when I learned all this education, getting an exercise science degree, yes, there's a lot of physiology in it, a lot of anatomy, but there's also too sports psychology that we had to learn. And then it transfers into being in the field. And then it transfers on, wait a minute, okay, I'm a personal trainer. How do I influence this individual who does not like to exercise and introduce them in an environment where I need to inspire them to exercise? So it's a lot of it is stemming from the communication aspects of constantly learning. So I'm not just learning on what their capabilities are, their strength capabilities or flexibility. I like to throw that out of the door. I like to look at what is in their mental capacity. What do I need to know about this person? What does it look like behind if do they have trauma? Are they afraid? I mean, I've trained so many people in my life where there are some people where they have a fear of going into a gym and they get judged and they automatically walk out. And they won't tell me, but they'll tell me maybe like 6 months later. And so this is why I mentioned communicating, because it's really important to learn how to communicate with individuals, whether it's, the ketchup bottle I mentioned earlier, or actually getting to know them. So whenever I go through fitness goals, it's not necessarily the fitness goals, it's understanding the person itself.
wow, that's really deep. So like, what you said, get to know the person. Like, how do you do that? Do you have coffee with them or something? Do you give them a survey? Um, I'm just curious about your process of.
Yeah, so I read, so I've been reading a lot of these books, and there's a book I read, it's on body language, and you read their body language. It is hard because everybody's different. But I always try to ask an open-ended question. So open-ended question is it could literally be anything from your shoes to your family. Everybody is different. There is no script. There is like if I met a random person out today, it would just be a simple smile and then going from there. But you can kind of it's very interesting because I can kind of tell. It's after being in the industry now for a longer time, it's the body language and learning how to really just connect with them, just saying by a simple hello. And then, if somebody, I'm just giving a random, if somebody were to walk in our gym, um, I'm giving them a tour. I'm making them feel comfortable. I'm just providing the highest level of customer service. But it's mainly not talking about, yes, we talk about fitness goals, but mainly talking about your personal goals itself. So I would always ask, what are your short-term goals, long-term goals? And then it goes forward from there. It is kind of hard to answer that question because it really truly talks about, for me in my mind, um, just literally learning how to communicate with them using body language, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, no, I can see that because sometimes you can, with body language, you can tell if someone's uncomfortable or they're kind of closing down, right? Or they're opening up. Um, I guess like I think that's a good thing to look at. Have you ever had any instances where sometimes it's harder to read their body language? Like if someone maybe has um like a different condition, so like I guess like if someone is more like neurodivergent, right? So maybe their body language and expressions are a little bit different. So I'm not sure if you have experience, you know.
No, I actually have, but it's very interesting because I don't know if it's a gift that I have. Because with my coworkers were always talking about like, wow, how can you talk to everybody and everybody? And I was like, well, I try to make the environment, going back to what I was saying earlier, I try to make the environment safe. So I'll instantly try to put the person in a situation where they approach me. If
Mm.
that it is harder to understand. So like I'll ask random questions, like if I'm going in a crowd, for example, I'm doing a stretch break, and the stretch break, they're on their computers, and I'm like, this guy going, "Hey, it's time to stretch." How many people are actually going to listen to me? The attention span of that from get to pivot, it's very difficult. So I did one time, I did an exercise and I was like, well, hey, we'll do a couple stretches just to, get them moving, whatnot. But the second exercise actually significantly worked. So the second exercise, I was like, well, hey, how about this? I'm going to ask you a set of questions and all you have to do is knock. And we can actually do it right now.
Okay.
So, for example, knock if you woke up today. Knock if you have a roof over your head. Knock if you have access to water. Knock if you can bench press 600 pounds.
I don't think so.
Knock if you own a red car. Anybody in the room own a red car? Knock if you own a dog. Ah, see? Knock if you own a cat. Oh, no cat. Knock if you love yourself. So that right there, that exercise opens up. It's an icebreaker. It opens up the doors to communicate with me. But I had to learn that, and it all stemmed from the U.S. Navy. When I went and joined the Navy, I grew up shy. I'm the Filipino guy that I had a strict mom, and my mom told me everything to do, and I tried to do everything what I did, and it went haywire. It went down. It didn't work. And I ended up becoming this shy person who didn't have any confidence in myself until I joined the Navy. And then when I joined the Navy, I was like, wow, I didn't realize I'm extroverted. I didn't know I'm like high on coffee all the time. I didn't know anything about myself. So I like to do these things where we're open-minded on I try to read the room, I try to read the body languages as I mentioned earlier. And it is hard because it's just interacting with people. I tend to do this naturally. I'll be in a grocery store and I will naturally say hello to people buying oranges and apples.
Same, Rob. Are we twins?
And it's weird because I'm like, the person is looking at me and they will say, "Oh yeah, I'm doing well." But it's a natural hello. So it's kind of hard to go back to that question. It is very difficult because it does take practice working with people. It does take practice understanding people, and it does take practice to be open-minded. I cannot close doors on people. I have to be open to everybody. I always like to look at this. I always try to find the good in people, no matter what. Everybody has good in them. You might see somebody who's like, oh, they're very toxic or they're very, but are they really toxic? They're human. We're all human. We all have a way of loving each other. We just need to know how to find that. And that's where I was saying about communicating is a learned skill. It's a learned applied skill on, I feel like some people have it naturally, some people they don't. But, the more and more we communicate with each other, the more we can learn about each other.
Wow, Rob. I feel like you're giving me a virtual hug right now. And everyone who's watching, because like times are hard and uh to meet someone who really believes the goodness in others, it's very refreshing and definitely something we could use more of. So thank you. Thank you for that virtual hug. Um,
Yes.
and I'm trying to wrap up here, but I'm just thinking about something you said where it took years and years of practice. I know you've you were in the Navy and then you've been out of the Navy for, like over a decade or something, right? Um, and so I guess I'm just curious about what your pathway has it always been this cluster crystal clear to you?
Actually, it has. So, small little story is I have if you don't know the rankings
Oh
is
no.
so U.S. Navy, the highest ranking enlisted is a Master Chief. And we had this and this dude was awesome, but this dude was intimidating. So it was Master Chief McClellan. I still remember him. He was my boss. And he was just big, jacked black dude that just like you didn't mess with him. Like he was so scary. You're like, oh my gosh. But he he really appreciated people who had like a lot of hard work, ethics, and whatnot. And so one day he went up to me and he goes, he noticed, all the hard work that everybody's been doing. And he goes, I just talked to him one day and I go, hey, Master Chief, nobody wanted to be on the boat, by the way. So, um, um, what could we do to get off the boat? And then Master Chief was like, hey, well, you work out a lot. Like, can you get people to get off the boat? How about this? I guarantee you every Friday we can get people off the boat if you convince them to get off the boat to work out. So when that happened, I just rallied up everybody. There's like 50 people in our division. I was in supply division. Well, actually, there's more people, but there's subgroups. But in my division, there was about 50 people. And I got about like 30 people out there. We go out, we were, the times that we were in port, I was stationed in Norfolk, and I was stationed on the USS Enterprise. It's one of the original nuclear powered carriers. And we got off, I got everybody off the boat, and I was like, hey, let's all meet up at the, softball fields. And I led a warm up. And I just always went back to the boot camp days of how we lead a warm up. It leads to the actual workout. So the workout could be 30 minutes. After we're done working out, we have an actual cool down. And then once we're cooled down, the whole entire workout will be anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. But right after all of that, we would all grab lunch and everybody would be off the ship. So our Master Chief started noticing this. He goes, "Hey, we always go by last names. So my last name is Calija, and he goes, Calija, you know, how do you do this? How do you get these people?" And I'm like, "Well, first and foremost, I can't be like you, Master Chief. I can't be all the time. I mean, it works for you, it works, but for me, it doesn't. I like to be everybody's best friend. So so I ever since that day, and then week after week, I had this vision. And I'm like, wait a minute, if I'm leading people, what does this look like in the future? Is there a degree that has that? And then I end up finding out that there was. I did not know there was a degree in exercise science, and I didn't even know what exercise science was. And then you apply exercise science, and then you be in the field of it, and it's fun. And the most challenging thing that I had to learn was identity,
Mm.
who you really are. And there was a sports psychologist. He was my college professor at UCF. I went to University of Central Florida, and he said, "This is your final. This is it. You either pass or fail on this, because I can tell if you're gonna pass or fail on this." He's like, "I'm gonna ask you a question or a series of questions, and one of the questions was, who are you?" And he didn't want, "Oh, Rob Calija, the personal trainer." He goes, "Who really are you?" So I'm sharing you my response. My response was, I am I am a helper. If I can learn to help others, I can learn to help myself. And it transponds since that day, it it had a clear vision even more. Because I saw that day from boot camp, and then I saw that day in college, and then it goes into the industry, being in the industry as a personal trainer at a YMCA, to now being a performance coach at Exos. It's the same thing. I am always a helper. People come to me every day with not just fitness goals. There's some people, they don't feel comfortable talking to an EAP counselor, at the bank, because of they have marital issues. They'd rather come to me because, going back to what I said earlier, I created an environment where they feel welcomed. So as long as I can keep that vision tunnel alive, like see that, that's where it's going to be for the rest of my life. But it all started when the Navy, when I took everybody out to the softball fields and say, "Hey, let's work out because Master Chief said we can get off the boat on Friday and we can have a long weekend." So it all started from there, and then it's just a ripple effect, and then meeting more people, and for me it becomes like very, very rewarding. So I get to meet people every day, different people, including yourself. Whoever's tuning into this podcast right now, technically we're all meeting right now, like face to face. It's like so it feels rewarding right now to be on here because I'm meeting more and more people.
Wow. Well, I am so glad that you came today, Rob. I mean, I have like a lot to think about everything you said. But not just like the knowledge that you talked about, but also the vibe that you're bringing into this. Like I really appreciate your energy and your wisdom.
Yes, thank
And
you.
I know like you're really good in person and virtual, it looks like, right? But also I know you publish something as well, right?
Yes. So when I was at the YMCA, I had the opportunity to have some articles published, um, and they're through Fernandina Observer. So they are in the links, and it's on like exercise programming. And I wanted to write an article on somebody who has never exercised and how can they apply it. And it's very simple. It's a simple mentality, and it's not just geared towards fitness. It's geared towards anything. If you want to learn how to play, drums, or if you want to, I don't know, write a book, or if you just want to learn how to meet people in general, it's the hidden message in there is how to create confidence,
Mm.
how to uh, how to create the highest level of this thing called self-efficacy, where it's an internal drive, where I don't have to tell you what to do. You told yourself to do that. And that's the biggest mystery that I have as a personal trainer. I'm like, why did this person spend X amount of dollars on training sessions and they're not willing to come by and use them? They just spend almost a grand. They just dropped $1,000 or so, but they're not willing to invest their time, their energy into that. So that's where self-efficacy is lost. It's not its highest, optimal level. And that's where, I wrote these articles to create that message to inspire people to have the highest level of self-efficacy. If anybody doesn't know what self-efficacy is basically an internal drive where I don't have to tell you to do anything. It's kind of like the person who says, "Hey, I tied my shoes today." You do it internally. You're gonna do it. "Hey, I brushed my teeth today." You're gonna do it. But if we have a goal to lose weight, or if we have a goal to get better at the gym, or to just become healthier, who's going to tell us to do that? That mindset the wheels have to turn. So the articles I wrote, they were the message in there. There's a little hidden message in there, and it could be on, some of them are on laughter, some of them are on exercise programming, but it's geared towards self-efficacy.
Wow. Well, I would like the links to that, Rob, so we can share
Yes.
with everyone.
Yes.
And I'll make sure to add it as well to the video, for the captions. And yeah, I mean, we're really at the end here. And I know we covered a lot, but I guess any last few words, like under 30 seconds. Uh, any last few words that you want to give someone who's trying to find their path?
So this is what I learned from the famous Jim Quick. He has a podcast. I listened to him in during the pandemic. He had a question, and it makes you think. I'm all about questions. I don't like to tell people what to do because I'm not your dad. I'm not your brother. I'm a human. So here's the question, and I'm quoting it from Jim Quick, is if you were to run into your 9-year-old self, what would you tell your 9-year-old self? Or the 9-year old self would tell you, vice versa. So again, if you were to run in your 9-year-old self right now, what would you tell that 9-year-old?
Mm. Yeah, that's a lot to think about. I'm not going to answer that. That's what people think about. Um, and I guess if try to think of that question and then you can put it on the comments, what would you tell your 9-year-old self and what would your 9-year-old self tell you? And we'll reply and Hopefully we
Yeah.
get a lot of
Oh
response.
yeah, hopefully we get a lot of response. I'm
Yeah.
interested.
You
This
know.
is great, by the way.
Yeah, no, thank you again, Rob. And I know like you said you mentioned before you're like working on a book, so I can't wait
Yes.
to get those out there. And
Yeah. It's been like almost 5 years. No, no.
that's okay. That's okay. Just take your
And,
time and
and
talk.
just a lot of this book is what we're talking about. It's the details of what we're talking about, like self-efficacy, and it goes into details itself. But yes, there is a book coming out.
Awesome. Okay, well we'll be looking out for your book, Rob. And again, thanks for your service and see you out there.
Yes.
Okay. Yay.
Hey.
Yay. Hold on. I